I had an older brother and an older sister, both who were artistic.
Okay.
So I don't know, when you get a little success at it, you kind of feed on it a little bit. So my main thing as a kid was drawing. Didn't hardly paint at all. Did a lot of drawing, even all the way through junior high. Like I won a Scholastic Golden Key, which is it's an award for art. I think I was probably in junior high at that point.
You were a big deal.
I was a big deal to myself and to my mom and dad, but it wasn't that big a deal. But like my art teacher in high school, Wayne Hughes at Lee Summit High School, was always telling me, draw. And I said, well, I'm not really painting much. He said, draw. Keep drawing, because that is the most basic thing that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can build off that. You can go to painting at any point. But if you can't draw, you can't draw. And it's kind of funny because right now, kind of stuff I'm doing, not drawing at all.
Seriously.
But I think the one thing about drawing that was really good is it taught me to look. It taught me to observe. And a lot of times when you think about it, we don't really observe a lot. A lot of stuff goes by kind of in a whirlwind, just, you don't look.
Mm-hmm.
You drive to work, you don't look at stuff. You've already seen all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, when you're drawing, like looking at these bottles here with the light reflecting on them, the shapes, the perspective even of that thing, drawing forces you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The type of drawing I was doing, which was realistic drawing. So
Okay, so you're drawing landscapes, you're drawing things in your reality.
I was drawing more objects.
Okay.
Like I think the thing that I won that gold key on was like a high chair or something. I vaguely remember it. It was just a chair and with a nice light on it, and it was just an object.
Wow.
So I tended to do that even when I was young, rather than going out and drawing landscapes or whatever. I was more about odd little objects. I remember drawing underneath our stairs at our house was where the pantry was. Sitting in there and drawing the cans and bottles and stuff on the shelf. So.
This is like the worst. This is the worst for me. I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just like amazed because I like object drawing is I can do it, but it's like a meticulous work for me.
Yeah, and then when I got to college, I wish I could think of the guy's name, the professor who had kind of the most influence on me. But it was a drawing class, and we'd have to bring in, I don't remember how much. They were small drawings, but he wanted really nice drawings. And I could draw, so I would show up, and he acted not too impressed, but I could tell he was impressed. But if I didn't put the amount of work in and I needed to, he'd call me out in a minute. Hey, Swan, what is this? You can do better than this. And honestly, I don't think I'd really been pushed like that, like even in high school. I just, I was a good art student.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got to college, he was like the one who said, no, you got to keep working at it. Because I can see where you put the hours in, and sometimes I was maybe partying a little bit more than I was drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also, segue, the teacher who introduced me to abstract art. And I just remember him saying, dyes or watercolors or oil paint on a canvas or on paper, just the look of it is enough. Mm-hmm. It's like you don't have to draw or paint an object. Mm-hmm. And I know you can relate to this.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm loving where you're going.
You get this. Color overlapping, color and texture. And so this, I don't remember what class that was, my freshman year, early on. And it was so much fun. And it was really kind of the way I approach it now. Mm-hmm. You try something, like I would put spray mount on this mat board just because it would create this texture, and then I would wet it and I drip dye down on it and just the way it reacted to when it hit that spray mount stuff, it was just, and sometimes it was just terrible. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, but even that, when it doesn't work, you learn something. You say, okay, that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But, so that was my introduction to abstract art, me doing some. And it really didn't have much of an effect as far as the type of work I was doing. Afterwards, I continued to draw, paint, and I didn't really go the abstract thing for quite a while.
Kind of surprised me almost, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it, I enjoyed it, but I was really, my real gift was drawing, I think. I think my real gift was seeing, is what it really was. And so anyway, fast forward, I'm working at Hallmark. I'm learning Photoshop. I'm using Photoshop all the time, photo retoucher. So I worked photographically with photos using my art in there, just trying to make it real or whatever.
So what do you mean? Deep dive on that for a minute. Your job at Hallmark.
My job at Hallmark was a photo retoucher. And it started out, we were literally working on transparencies, like a slide, only a big thing.
Okay.
And you go in there with acids to bleach out dirt. And then you go back in with layers of paint. And you're working with these goggle things on, like you're this far from the thing. And
Is this in red light?
no, it was in fairly low light because we were working on light tables
Okay.
showing through the, transparency. Anyway, I think back in the day, like, they figured maybe 3 normal dirt spots bleached out and filled in an hour, 3 or 4 maybe. So, needless to say, when Photoshop came along or any of the digital retouching, you go in, you zap 3 things in 2 seconds or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
So, and I think the transition for us was in one way bad because we were a select group of people in the country, people who were trained, highly trained and skilled at retouching, painting on transparencies. And I could have gotten anywhere and gotten a job doing it that I was trying to do it. But at the same time, I think I'd be blind. I think I literally would be blind. Working in there over that, through that light, looking up through there with these magnifiers on so that you could see the tip of your brush hitting in there. It was, I think I would be dead maybe.
So
Not even just blind.
when Photoshop came out, did you lose half the staff?
We did not. When Photoshop came out, first of all, everybody had Photoshop, thought they were a retoucher. We understood not only how to use the software, we understood how to retouch.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it was much easier, you still had to know what you were doing. Because you'd see stuff come in where somebody, wasn't a retoucher, maybe wasn't an artist, but they had Photoshop and they would Photoshop something. I think there was a magazine out that was just basically all terrible Photoshop mistakes. The whole thing was just page after page where they'd retouch something and they'd leave something in the background or they'd leave an extra arm or something, it was just bizarre stuff. It was hilarious. But anyway, so just being able to have Photoshop doesn't mean you necessarily know what you're doing to do actual retouch. So
Yeah.
it was good. So we became less of this select group. More people were able to do retouch.
Okay.
But our skills, the stuff that we learned, painting and, was very valuable.
Mm.
It just made it a lot faster. And I don't know that the amount of people in the department went down. I know we got a lot more work out.
Because you were such a fan of drawing,
Yeah.
why did you transition into doing photo retouch when you got hired at Hallmark?
Well, actually, I went in as a process artist, which was a lot of just simple art, like different processes like glitter and all these different things. It was not a very exciting job. I saw the photo lab had this display up.
Okay.
And it was all of this before and after stuff. It was like down, going into the crown room, kind of where everybody coming off the elevator saw it. and it was cool. I mean, it was cool stuff. It was like they took this photo and they made it into this. And the one gal, mostly you were like photo retouching it where you're getting the wrinkles out, this and that, you're beautifying. She took a photograph of herself, and she made an old version of her. She put in wrinkles and stuff. And it was like, oh crap, that's what I want to do. That looks like fun.
Oh my God. What's crazy though is because of apps and technology these days,
Yeah.
it's like you can just scan someone's face and do that, but
That
must have been like mind blowing.
That was done on transparency. That was back before any, because when I got in the department, no Photoshop. But anyway, yeah, the transition was definitely easy and obviously the direction I wanted to go in, which I was going out of graphics and more into the creative department too,
Okay.
which opened up all kinds of stuff.
So it wasn't hard transitioning, basically?
No. It was really nice. It was fun. Like I say, it was hard, but we had this group of like 8 or 9 of us. They had us in a little room, it's like an oversized closet. And we were all back in there, and we would just talk all day long. Everybody's like working, but you'd have all kinds of conversations going on. And some people would back out of conversations if they got to whatever. I mean, but it was a great time.
Yeah.
And I worked at Hallmark for a long time with a lot of those same people in that department that were around, and still love those guys. I loved my work. I loved doing it, and I was good at it too, so that always helps. But
so then, how did you transition from Hallmark into photography specifically?
Well, that's a good question. My first even camera stuff was shooting subject matter for art, like paintings or whatever. So I'd go out and I'd shooting this or that, but then the thing about working in creative at Hallmark is it gave you such an amazing exposure to great photography and great art. I mean, mostly we're working with photography. Occasionally we would work on something else, like taking a piece of art and doing some other things with it. But so even though I wasn't doing a bunch of photography at that point, I still was exposed to it, and I was learning every day. I'm not even like making mental notes. It's deeper than that. It's just subconscious. I'm just seeing it every day. I'm seeing it, and it's like, oh, I like that. I like that, or I like that as much. But
so just simply because there's so many artists around you, you're basically just through osmosis taking in.
You're taking in, yeah, and it definitely had an effect on my photography. I mean, on my ability to shoot, because you see good composed photographs and what they did with color, some effects that they were going for, and so yeah, that kind of wears off on you if you're paying any attention at all. Yeah. And I was.
Yeah. That makes sense. So then you're shooting photography at Hallmark.
Well, no, I'm just
not shooting photography, but you're working at Hallmark.
I'm working at Hallmark doing the photo retouch.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I retired, I had a business called Insight Photography. Not Insight, but Insight, as in Inside a Riot or Insight.
Oh.
It was an incentive-based kind of target that we had. We worked with like U.S. Motivation, some of these different companies who would do like a trip for people who bought a lot of whatever product, like Sharp Electronics. We worked with them quite a bit.
Okay.
So all of these people, they're all millionaires because their businesses sell so much stuff.
Okay.
But when you sell a certain amount, you end up like getting to go on this trip.
Okay.
So this photography business was based on that, basically going after that.
Going after large companies who were going to go on trips.
Going on trips. And so we're working with like U.S. Motivation is kind of this company, but they're connecting us to Sharp Electronics or Ricoh or any number of businesses.
Okay.
And it took us to places like Italy and Greece and Switzerland and Baltics, Sweden and Norway. And I mean, all of these trips. It was amazing. We would get to go get paid for shooting incredible stuff.
So you're
Positano, Italy, all of these beautiful places. So we're on the boat with them, but they go off onto these tours wherever they stop. And myself or my daughter, who also was a photographer and worked with me, and then my son later on, we would just go out with them, and they wanted us to get pictures of them, get pictures of the scenery. The best you could do is get pictures of them with the scenery. I mean, that was like the best shot of all. But yeah, I had a person come up to me one time on the boat, and they said, "So did they pay you to do this?" I said, "Yeah. They're doing a job, but somebody's got to do it, right?" So, anyway, yeah, it was a great gig, but it didn't last really very long for me because I don't know if for some of you might remember 08, 09 was a stock market bad time.
Okay,
And,
I barely
yeah,
remember.
I'm sure.
I was a very small child.
Yeah, I'm sure you weren't probably into the stock market much, but we were in Russia, in St. Petersburg.
Okay.
And you'd get these little notes under the door, and it would say, it'd give you like just little headlines, what's happening in the world.
Okay.
And they'd always have a little financial section, which I never read. I mean, it didn't mean much to me.
Uh-huh.
But just hanging out with all these different people, hearing them talk about the stock market and stuff, they were talking about, because these people all had money in the stock market majorly. I didn't.
Mm-hmm. So you're on a trip with a bunch of millionaires,
Yeah.
recording them. You're only getting information through paper,
Yeah, a little paper come under the door each day on the boat.
and you don't really have a concept of how or what's really happening.
I didn't know what was going on exactly. I just knew they were all concerned.
Okay.
And just to wrap this up, the gal who was at Shark talked to me and said, "Would you come have dinner with me on the boat tonight? Let Chris go into St. Petersburg and shoot the stuff because I want to have a discussion." So she said, "We love what you and Chris are doing. The way that people react to you, the back and forth that you have with them, I can see they really like you and we love your work."
Mm-hmm.
They said, "We want to have you start doing dealers meetings," which was just another thing to do in the States. And I was like, I thought, this is it. We promised a lot, we gave them more, and it's starting to really pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that was the last job I worked. That was the last job I worked in this capacity. Because right then it just all went in the toilet.
You're saying, I just don't even have any memory of this.
Yeah.
So
No, you would.
stock market crashes, and you're just saying that just tons of people's jobs just completely stop.
So what happened was, like in this particular business,
Yeah.
having the photographer along was a perk. We didn't have to be there. They could do the trip without us.
Sure.
They loved it because we would take all these pictures, we'd make CDs, and we'd just ship them out to everybody. And so it was good. It was nice.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking pictures, but, they're also getting more professional pictures.
Yeah, pictures are nice, but pictures by Gary and others.
And Chris. Gary and Chris.
Gary and Chris are
And Aaron.
totally different things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, so they basically cut out the photography part initially. They cut back on some of the trips. They had fewer trips. So in the meantime, before the stock market bounced back, I lost my daughter to a full-time job. I lost my son to a full-time job. And so I was going to have to go out and find other photographers. And I just decided it was time to do something different. And that kind of brings us to this.
Wow. So it was almost kind of pushed in that
Yeah, it
direction.
was. I would have kept doing that. I mean, it was actually getting paid
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to my artwork, which a lot of times I was just, funding it with art supplies and I'd sell something sometimes. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it was less profitable from that standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
but much, much more profitable in ways that count.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about creativity. You're talking
Creativity,
about
love what you're doing.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you kind of, to be able to be working and doing this stuff and get into like that flow state where you just, it's like meditation. You're not thinking about any of your problems, or you're not thinking about it, you're just doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like people who get on and play video games for a long time. The time goes by and you're just like, oh my gosh, 2 a.m. or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way with doing art, but it was a much better result from the standpoint of, gradually making progress on what you're doing. And I just felt like every time I did do a show, it was better than the last one,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that it's necessarily true, but I can think of one that might not have been better than the one before. But I do think, I think it now, what I'm doing now is better. Spending a lot of time on the framing and trying to get the whole look. But it's just, I just love doing it.
So what I'm hearing you say is your gateway into kind of thinking about changing photos started when you saw the girl warp herself into an old woman, right? And some things like that were being displayed at Hallmark at that time. But I'm just curious as to, and I know I'll know so much more when we go through all your pieces, but with your art, for me, okay, maybe this will help. When I'm painting, the biggest crux for me is just putting paint on canvas, just starting. So for you, how was your starting point? How was your working point?
That's a great question.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a great question because I'll tell you, this is it in a simple sentence. I was sitting in the basement of my house and I said, I think I want to start doing abstract stuff. And that was it. I didn't know where. I didn't have hardly any idea what it was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't looking at somebody's abstract art and going, all right, this is what I want to do, this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
All that I thought, sometimes when I was at work or at home, not always at work, but you'd play around with, like you have a picture there and you just grab a section of it and you flip it over and you put, and it made these cool little designs or whatever. And I said, well, that's where I'm starting. And that literally is what I did. And
you just had pictures you already took?
I had photographs that I had taken, and I just take those photographs, especially landscapes, but you could do it with a lot of stuff. But and just started trying stuff, and then maybe changing the angles or whatever. But it wasn't very complex. And my first stuff that we're going to show in the art show, it's pretty simple. It was symmetrical, horizontally, and symmetrical vertically too. So it was simple stuff. But I think it goes back to that time when I was in college and I was pouring dye and stuff on the wet paper stuff. You see something that you love, and you say, okay, I gotta try to do that again. I'll try that again, but of course it's gonna turn out different every time. So the main thing with me, with making progress, was just continuing to try different things. And basically the show is gonna be about the different things that I tried and how I progressed from that simple, symmetrical to more complex color, patterns, some sacred geometry kind of shapes and stuff that has been kind of playing with a little bit more recently. But just continuing to push the envelope. And at some point I may say, okay, I'm done with this completely. I'll start drawing again or painting, who knows.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the main thing is for artists to be genuine. I saw a YouTube video. This guy was talking about, you can be an artist and you can see a style and you can study and you can learn how to do that style. You can make those paintings and you can sell them. which that's an artist,
Mhm.
but said if you want to be creative, just follow your heart, follow whatever crazy ideas you have, and fortunately, I was able to do it with less pressure on me financially at that time. Because I started late doing that. I started towards the end of my HALLMARK career, and but when I'm not playing softball, Kansas City Kids,
Shout out, Kansas City Kids.
Which I'm cutting back some, trying to, but I've been really trying to really focus on art a lot more, and it's rewarding, and I've heard different people say that, hey, if nobody else likes it, but you like it, that's good enough. And I really agree that. And you always hope that someone else is going to like it, and people do like it, but not everybody's going to like it. For some people, it's not abstract enough. Other people, it's like, what is that a picture of? I don't even recognize what that is. Oh, one other thing about abstract art that I love. Abstract art involves the viewer to a greater extent. I mean, if you've got a picture of a tree with a pond or whatever, and they come up and they say, oh, that's really nice. I recognize, you did a good job on that tree. That looks like a tree. The pond, that looks like water. So there's a connection there.
Yeah.
You paint something abstract, you put it up there, and they go on, what is this? You know what that kind of reminds me of? I get kind of a feeling of like I don't know, warmth or whatever, or this kind of reminds me of, I don't know, the sky or something. So that person viewing the abstract art is more involved. It's the way abstract works. And some people just don't want it. They don't want it at all. They want to see a picture of a barn. They want to see, you know.
They want to see some grapes.
They want to see, they want grapes, the fruit, the whole thing. But then others will look at it and say, yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know. I just like it. I can't tell you why I like it. Right? I'm sure you get this all the time with your stuff. It's like, that's cool. I like it. It doesn't have to look like anything.
Yeah.
Because it's more about a feeling, really, at that point.
Yep. I completely get that.
Yeah.
I super connect with your playing with color thoughts.
Yeah.
Just like, I feel the same when I'm painting. More often than not, I'm like, wow, this color is doing it all. Like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this color next to that color is just spectacular. Like, I couldn't make that look
Yeah.
good. It's the colors themselves
Yeah.
that are looking cool. And then it just becomes kind of like a game of like, I'm just playing and moving and pushing things around.
Yeah, you had to try that color with that color for it to work, though.
True.
If you hadn't put those together, you would still not know that those colors really work well together. So it's that experimenting and experiencing. You know, experiment it, and sometimes it turns out really, really nice. Not always.
Not always. Yeah, it's one of my favorites when it's just like, I can't wait to paint over this.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple where in my shop where I'm like,
Yeah.
Like someone will be looking at something and I'm like, that's never gonna.
But I'm sure you've had some that you thought were never going to turn around, and they did turn around.
That's the most confusing thing. Does that happen to you when you Okay, I would love to know your thoughts on when you're finishing a piece. Because I love when somebody asks me, how do you know when a piece is done, Avery?
Good question.
And so I would love to know kind of your thoughts on that question, which I know is awful.
You know, it's a great question. I just don't have an answer for you. It's just a personal thing when you decide. But I will say this, in this abstract stuff that I'm doing, there's been a lot of times I thought I was done. And then I took that one image, and I put it with another image. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so much more interesting than that ever was. But I was kind of in love with that for a while, till I met this one. Oh, my heart. I mean, this is love.
Yeah.
But this, you're fine. I still like you, but this is who I love now.
This is one of my favorite quotes from you. I'm sure I'm probably going to start out tomorrow with my favorite quote of you.
All right.
But this is.
Oh no.
This is my favorite quote, and the answer is love.
Oh.
Is my favorite quote from you. And so it's actually funny. So when somebody asks me, like, oh, like, what are you trying to paint here? I most recently, like yesterday, I was asked, what's your inspiration for doing this?
Yeah.
And it's like, I can answer, but the long-winded answer ends with, I love doing this. I love the process of doing this. I love having it finished. And I love looking at your art now that it's here in front of me. Same way when it's my own art. And so,
Yeah.
is that kind of your own? Like,
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I can add anything to that. I think it is. It's just like, you gotta love what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you don't love what you're doing, if it's not like a game to you, if it's work, they say if it's work, what's the saying? Like, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. You know, it's just like, but there are times when you have to work through stuff.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's that love that motivates you to do it because you know you love it, and you know because I love it, I'm gonna work through this. Because it's not always easy. You gotta put in the time. But man, it's like playing sports. I had to run track in junior high because I wanted to play football, and they said if you're gonna play football, you gotta run track, and I hated track. The idea of running around in circles on that track was just.
What event did you have to do?
I was injured. The whole time.
No, you weren't.
Yeah. I never was able to compete.
Sorry.
If my track coach is still alive, I apologize, but probably not. But anyway,
Might be old.
let me chase a ball. Give me a ball to chase. I will play all freaking day.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just be war slick.
Mm-hmm.
Chasing a ball, catching a ball, throwing a ball, hitting the ball, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
One's love, and one was just work, and just I didn't like it.
This has been interesting to me because I think that there's. I don't want to say. I just think it's helpful. I think doing physical activity is really helpful. I think it really enlivens me. I think it enlivens others. I think it's just good to go outside, even if it's just walking or whatever the case may be. But through your time as an artist, how has your balance happened with activity, and like what's the value you hold on activity, and do you think it influences your art and how you produce art?
Boy, that's another good question. I know that it's good. I know that I have to get physical exercise for mental health. But as far as knowing how to balance that, you know, I just kind of feel like, I don't know, growing up I felt like in the 5th grade I felt like, hey, I think I'm called to be an artist. And I still think I am. I know that I had a love for, and I still have a love for playing old man softball, and I love the idea of the teammates and the teamwork and all that stuff. That's fun. That's rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to give up one or the other, you know, I'm pretty sure I would be doing art. You know,
Gotcha.
And I am trying to devote more time this year because it's really busy playing the tournaments and traveling around, and I still love it. I'm cutting back this year. I told him at one point I was done, but that was mostly just to cut ties, and then okay, I'll negotiate. Yeah, I'll play some tournaments, but it's not because I don't love to play, but it's kind of getting in the way of some other stuff.
Yeah, I get that. I think I got a couple more questions for you. I'm not trying to take too much of your time from you. I appreciate you so much, man. Okay, so a good question I got is, you're messing around with pictures. You're warping them, you're manipulating them, you're turning them into, this is an example of one of the pieces of art. And so, let's say that you've had 7 gallery shows, right?
Maybe 6, 7.
6, 7, okay. And then you have 20, 30 pieces of shows on there?
Yeah, I would say, I don't think I've ever had 30 in a show.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that one show that was, I stepped backwards a little bit. You know, that one shot.
Oh, that's funny. So the one where you had the most pieces.
Yeah, but there were a lot of little pieces. I might have had 30 because they were small. I do like working bigger a little bit better. It just feels like when it's larger, the details, the things that I'm drawing to are more obvious to the person viewing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they're small, but yeah, 6, 7 shows, 20 some usually.
Okay, so you got, let's just easy math here. 6 shows, 20 pieces a show, 120 pieces. How many, ballpark me, do you think did you mess around with to get to that 120 pieces? You know? Thousands? Hundreds?
No,
Thousands.
thousands.
So you have thousands of images that are warped and
Yeah, I mean, some of those thousands were things just along the way, started putting stuff together, started doing this. I mean, I have scads, thousands, hundreds, maybe thousands. I would say over 1,000 for sure, maybe not thousands. But yeah, I mean, I still could go back through old DVDs that I would throw stuff on and I'd say, oh, I remember when I loved you. I mean, I remember when I was attracted to you, and there was something in there that I really liked. And but basically, when putting these things together, the way I do it, I put stuff together. There is something that I like, maybe a lot of it, but I really like this section. So now this is cropped, and this becomes what I'm really working with. And like the second one in the show coming up, where I did a lot of that warping stuff, was basically going in, you're making this pattern, and you're just building on it, and then you're designing it by making some of the shapes big, some of the shapes smaller, more organic, less, like if you just, stack it on top of each other and beside each other, it's, too regimented. It's not something I'm really interested in doing. But if you can make it feel more organic, this one doesn't have a whole lot of manipulation to it. Just enough. First of all, this is Checkerboard Mesa and Zion National Park. It's like my favorite place on the earth. I mean, it's one of the. If I go through Zion, I will have to go sit up in that mountain at some point.
Heck yeah.
But anyway, just the shapes and stuff were beautiful in itself, but I wanted to abstract it a little bit. Started adding the horizontal lines, and when I put the different images together, that's when color started creating out of thin pixels, thin air. I mean, just the way you combine it is how you get the extra color going on.
That is something that is still confusing to me. Do you think tomorrow is going to be a little easier to explain? Because I'm confused on how the colors come. Because you're not changing the saturation. You're not changing.
I mean, I may change. Like even in the original first stuff, I would be working with the basic colors that were there, but I would like tweak the colors.
Okay.
Like the greenish color or kind of a bluish green color, that's shadow. Or the red or orange, that's the rock in Zion or Bryce Canyon.
Okay.
So I was working with those colors as they were, but I was tweaking them, saturating them or whatever. But then at the one point where I started working with layers, there's just different ways you can put layers together.
Okay.
And that's all I can say other than you put these layers together and you try this and you say, okay, I'm going to try this other kind of layer with that. And it's like, ugh, no, that didn't work. But if I move this one on top of that other one, it's like, okay, now we're going someplace.
Got it.
So it's just these different, I don't know how many different layer options there are. There's got to be 20, I would guess. Some of which I hardly would ever use, some of that I use more than others. But that's kind of how you come up with the color. But sometimes I'll have 5 layers, different things, or combinations. Some of them will be repeated, or 7 sometimes. I mean, you get a lot of different stuff going on.
Yeah.
And But it's going back to the pouring the paint on, it's just experimenting and seeing what you like,
Yeah, that
and
makes
what you
sense.
don't like. Some of it you just like. Some of it will never see the light of day.
Yep.
Some of it will never be seen by anybody but me.
That's
Just
actually
because, that's the way it goes.
seriously. That's something that I've like. Now I've stopped recording all my paintings. Is like there's so many layers where it's like either the people here are seeing it or I'm seeing it, and that's it. And it's almost a spiritual experience. There's times when it's like I'll miss a photo I could have taken or a video I could have taken, and it's kind of almost, it feels good to be like
But
in the moment.
You were there.
Yeah, I was
saw it.
oh my gosh, no, but I was like paying attention. I was
Yeah.
experiencing it.
You were looking.
Exactly.
You were looking. Yeah, that's so true. It's like, I do that all the time too, and it's like, oh, I missed that shot, but hey, I'm here in this place at this time of day, and look at that color. And look at those shapes.
Yep.
I am so fortunate. I am so blessed. I'm just to be able to do it even, and sometimes you get those photographs and they're amazing, and other times, like say, or sometimes you're shooting them with your phone, it's like, yeah, it can't capture it, but I captured it.
Yeah.
I still remember the color of the sun with the smoke on it that day when we were coming back from storm chasing.
Oh, so great.
The color of the sun was incredible. I'm shooting it with my phone, I'm shooting it with my Osmo. They couldn't catch it, and so finally I just said, okay, I'm just gonna enjoy it. The beautiful color of pinkish, reddish, orange, just awesome.
Between that shot and then the fact that we both shut our cameras off before the lightning, but it's great though. It's like the whole experience is wonderful. So.
Yeah, we're gonna try that again sometime.
Storm chasing, for anybody wondering, Gary's taking me storm chasing. But I got two more good questions for you tonight. One being, hey, I'm an artist. My name's Timmy Jimmy. I'm working a job. I'm doing art on the side. I really loved it through high school. I really loved it. I thought about going to college for it and I didn't. And I want to get into playing with my art more, but I'm not. I just can't get into it. Do you have any advice for Timmy Jimmy?
You're asking hard questions. I mean, good questions.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, what was the guy's name?
Well, let's do Jim Bro Mosconio.
Jim Bro Mosconio.
Yeah.
Jim Bro Mosconio, turns out he's married and he's got kids.
That's true too. That's a whole different thing.
I mean, Jim Bro has got it all going on and it's a lot.
Well, let's have you answer for two. Let's have you answer for a single kid, and let's have you answer for a married guy.
Okay.
Because it's two different things.
It is two different things, but I think it's the same answer.
Okay, good. That makes it easy.
Give some time to it. If you got a lot of time to give to it, try it, experiment. Like say, put oil, put paint on canvas, mess around with digital files, whatever. Just do it. Just play with it. It's got to be play. And you'll find out that play turns sometimes into really nice art. And so Jim Bro Mosconio, with his two kids and his wife and his job, had less time. But he can still fiddle around with it, can do some, whatever time he's got.
So the advice is, take the time you got, and you gotta just put your feet in.
Yeah, and then maybe it's just turning the TV off when you get home and you're still with the family. Maybe you've got a little sketchbook or little watercolor paint thing. You're sitting there with the family, but you're applying yourself to something. There is some stuff you just gotta work through. But I understand because I was in the same place as far as like the job, the family, playing ball. But there's only one way to do it, and that's just to apply yourself, even if it's a little. But if you love it, you'll find out that all of a sudden there is time available that you didn't ever really thought about. Because a lot of times we waste a lot of time, doing stuff.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's very valuable stuff that we're doing, and you're just not getting around it. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
But if you play with it when you're younger, and then you are older, and then eventually you're going to be older and retired, and if you've played with it along the way, it's going to be a lot easier to transition into really doing it. If you've applied yourself when you could,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I can say.
Yeah.
But I know, man, it's busy. Whew. Life gets really busy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and I like your thought of turning off the TV. I mean, that's my biggest advice to anybody is like, I work backwards. I rather than thinking how can I utilize my time better, I'm like, what can I cut out next? That was a game I played for a while, so kind of similar answer if I was to ask myself. But all right, now I got a good one, and then you can have any closing remarks you got. But if you had any message you could put out to the universe, you got your art. Other than the answer is love, or deep dive that answer. Whatever I would just, because I mean, to me, you've had an amazing effect just with our friendship and just being able to.
And you with me as well. I really appreciated our time whenever we get together. We have whether storm chasing or just going to grab some food and just talking and sitting in the car and talking for a long time. But it is love. I mean, I would say the only thing that's real is love. I mean, we are spiritual beings created in the image of our Creator, God, the universe, whatever you want to say. I believe that we're creatures of light, manifested as love, and that's the only thing that's real. That's because it's the only thing that's real because it's the only thing that will endure. The rest of the stuff, all that's around us, it's stuff we're playing with while we're here. I believe that we're here to experience what we are not. We're spiritual beings in a material world with a lot of conflict going on around. But it's just an opportunity for love to be perfected in us. You know, that's what we're here for. And I mean, I've screwed up a lot in my life, but I understand, hey, we make mistakes. And are they really mistakes? We learn from hopefully everything that we do. And, it's just love, really. I mean, the softball guys, I tell them all the time I love them. And they're like, yeah, okay. I mean, but I don't want to hold it back. I think too often I don't tell people I love them enough. My family, my wife, my kids. But I just don't think you can do a higher thing in life. And part of love is not judging. Because you're kind of either judging or you're loving. You can't really do both at the same time. If you're judging a person for whatever reason, how they look, how they talk, or maybe the way they're acting, which is obnoxious or whatever, that's tough not to judge them. But honestly, you can't judge and love at the same time. You've got to make a choice. And if we want to go with what Jesus said was, this is my commandment, love one another. That's it. This is it. You're my disciples if you do what I command you. That's what his commandment was. I mean, the rest of it can all be summed up in loving each other, right?
And I love. I mean, I'm not an extremely practicing Christian by any means, but I absolutely can love Jesus' message, and I can
absolutely
100% get behind the bandwagon of anybody that is a Christian. I totally get it, and I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different expressions, and love is the best. It's the only one that's real. So.
No, you answered that awesome. I think, to me, you almost got me tearing up there for a second, so I'm sure you're helping somebody out there. I think, it's just cool to see, and it's good to hear. Like, I have similar answers with, what's my next, what should I do? It's like, you got to put time into it. Yeah. You got to get that negative stuff out, and you got to love. But I will also say, I love the idea of you can't judge and you can't love at the same time. And I find myself like, I mean, it just doesn't do anything judging someone for whatever. Because whatever's happening in the moment is because of whatever's happened in their whole life. It's led up to that moment where they're having a bad day or whatever the case may be. And it's like, my goal is to try to just maintain putting out love. And I don't always do it. So I freaking try.
No, we do not. I mean, if it were easy, everybody'd be doing it or whatever. But yeah, it's difficult, but I just feel like you can make progress in it. If you catch yourself, you're judging somebody, you catch yourself doing it and it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense I'm doing that. I've been doing that my whole life. It's not like going to go away just because you say, well, I'm going to love instead of judge. But catch yourself doing it, you say, well, I'm going to love that person instead. Like you say, I don't know what's going on with them. I'm not in their skin. I don't have any idea. They're different. They wear, nose rings and all this kind of whatever. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. It really doesn't.
Yeah, no matter how much we may look different, we're all coming from the same place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I have no more things for you. I just really appreciate your time. You got any last remarks you'd like to get out, or?
I do not.
Cool.
I've exhausted my wealth of brain power, and I got nothing left.
Well, I appreciate it.